The Byrds had it all: chart-topping hits, rock star egos, and explosive conflicts. Their sound defined the 60s, but the band's bitter breakups became legendary. Find out what really happened behind the scenes. 20. Creedence Clearwater Revival. They were once the kings of rock, with hits that defined a generation. But behind the scenes, Creedence Clearwater Revival was a band in turmoil. Creedence Clearwater Revival, or CCR, was made up of brothers John and Tom Fogerty, along with Stu Cook and Doug Clifford.
Ooh, I made it to the grapevine, and I'm just about to lose my mind. Mirror, keep on burning, rolling, rolling.
After forming in California in 1959 and playing under various names, including the Blue Velvets and the Gollywogs, the band settled on Creedence Clearwater Revival in 1967 and never looked back. The group's rise to fame was quick, producing hits like Proud Mary and Bad Moon Rising. In 1969, CCR played at the legendary Woodstock Festival, and though the set did not go as planned, it boosted the band's popularity into the early 70s. Ultimately, CCR's tenure as one of the top-selling bands of its time was short-lived. In 1972, the group bitterly split up.
You don't have to worry, you have no money. People on the river have been killed.
Tom Fogerty had left to pursue a solo career the year before, while Cook and Clifford found themselves in an acrimonious conflict with John Fogerty over the band's final album and its future. 19. Steppenwolf.
Steppenwolf, rock and roller. So let's have a fine welcome.
This band was the soundtrack of rebellion, with songs that became anthems for a generation. But fame can be a double-edged sword. This was an American-Canadian band that had some major hits. Members of the band included John Kay, Goldie McJohn, Jerry Edmonton, Michael Monarch, and Rushton Moreeve. They were famous for making rock in the subgenre of biker rock. The band managed to sell more than 25 million records around the world. They also reached the Billboard Hot with 13 singles and released 1 platinum album and 7 gold albums. Steppenwolf had breakthrough singles like Rock Me, Magic Carpet Ride, and Born to Be Wild that all managed to be top 10 on the Billboard Hot 100 singles. The group was founded by singer-rhythm guitarist John Kay, keyboardist Goldie McJohn, and drummer Jerry Edmonton, all formerly of the Canadian band The Sparrows. Guitarist Michael Monarch and bassist Rushton Moreeve were recruited via notices placed in Los Angeles area record and musical instrument stores. In 2016, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame nominated them for induction in 2017. Although they fell short of enough votes to qualify for induction that year, in 2018, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame selected one of their biggest singles, 1968's Born to Be Wild, as an inaugural selection in their singles category. 18. The Incredible String Band. A band that pushed boundaries and defied musical norms, the Incredible String Band was unlike anything else. But their journey was filled with twists. One of the most engaging groups to emerge from the esoteric 60s was the Incredible String Band. Basically, the duo of Mike Herron and Robin Williamson, its sound was comprised of haunting Celtic folk melodies, augmented by a variety of Middle Eastern and Asian instruments. Herron was a member of several rock bands in England in the early 60s, while Williamson and Clive Palmer played as a bluegrass and Scottish folk duo. Herron was asked to join as rhythm guitarist, and the trio named itself the Incredible String Band. The Incredible String Band, released in 1966, featured mostly original numbers, enthusiastically played in American and Celtic folk styles. Following the album's release, Williamson spent several months studying music in Morocco, and Palmer left the group to travel to Afghanistan. For the string band's second album, The 5,000 Spirits or The Layers of the Onion, exotic touches such as the Middle Eastern oud, Indian sitars, and tamboras began to permeate the group's sound. The band's lyrics also became more whimsical. Highlights include Williamson's tale of insomnia, No Sleep Blues, and Herron's amorous Painting Box. At the turn of the 70s, the Incredible String Band began to lose some of their momentum. The album Changing Horses was not as engaging as the band's previous collections, and the group's eclecticism became a liability rather than an asset. Bassist and pantomimist Malcolm LeMaistre joined in 1971 for You, a well-received stage show that did not translate as easily to record. The band made the transition to electric rock and roll in 1972. In 1974, following the album Hard Rope and Silken Twine, the Incredible String Band disbanded. Both founding members had prolific solo careers. Herron's took him in a rock direction, while Williamson explored his Celtic roots. 17. The Byrds. The Byrds were pioneers of folk rock, blending jangly guitars with thought-provoking lyrics. But internal conflicts would soon tear this band apart. The Byrds formed in Los Angeles in 1964 and included members Jim Roger McGuinn, Gene Clark, David Crosby, Chris Hillman, and Michael Clark. The band pioneered folk rock genre with covers like Mr. Tambourine Man and Turn, 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 but the group's sound shifted towards then popular psychedelic rock, causing rifts in the band that would lead Clark, and Crosby to leave voluntarily or be fired a few years later. David Crosby was an incredible songwriter and singer, but he wasn't always the best bandmate. The Byrds learned this pretty early into their run during the 1960s. I had a large ego, and Roger and I started having conflicts with each other over material, business, expenses, Crosby wrote in his memoir Long Time Gone. Everything we did was a potential source of disagreement. Things came to a head in 1967 when Crosby sat in with Buffalo Springfield at the Monterey Pop Festival and went on an onstage rant about the JFK assassination that embarrassed the other Byrds. There were also major battles during the recording of their album, The Notorious Byrd Brothers. By the end of 1967, they'd simply had enough. Roger McGuinn and Chris Hillman came over and said that they wanted to throw me out, Crosby said in 1980. They came zooming up in their Porsches and said that I was impossible to work with and I wasn't very good anyway, and they'd do better without me. And frankly, I've been laughing ever since. Fuck 'em, but it hurt like hell.
It's a season, turn, 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 and a time to I'm not sleeping and there ain't no place.
Despite the departures of three key band members, the Byrds continued to produce hits, including the album The Notorious Byrd Brothers well into the early 70s. In 1973, the group disbanded, though reunions continued up until 2000. Both Clark and Clark died in the early 90s. 16. The Beach Boys. They brought the sounds of summer to life, but behind the perfect harmonies were cracks that would eventually break the band apart. The Beach Boys was a family band made up of brothers Brian, Dennis, and Carl Wilson, their cousin Mike Love, and friend and neighbor Al Jardine.
Around you look so fine, and I know it wouldn't take much time.
The band began in 1961 when Dennis and Mike went fishing and decided to try their hand at writing a song about surfing. Soon after, the group created a demo of 2 original songs, gained popularity in Southern California, and were later signed by Capitol Records. The Beach Boys' momentum continued when they were tapped to help promote the release of Mattel's Barbie dolls by singing the song Barbie. Their rise cemented with the 1966 album Pet Sounds. Though the Beach Boys continued playing into the 70s, fractures began to form when substance abuse, mental health issues, and family betrayals and rivalries became more dominant in the lives of the band members. Brian and Mike's contentious relationship, as well as Dennis's association with the Manson family and eventual death by drowning in 1983, put an end to the band known for its happy-go-lucky sound and soaring harmonies. Carl Wilson died in 1998 of lung cancer. 15. Cream.
In your dark eyes, dawnlight smile.
They were the first supergroup, bringing together 3 legendary musicians. But with all that talent came egos and inevitable clashes. It is very difficult to talk about Cream without talking about the members of the band. Jack Bruce and Ginger Baker were both incredible musicians who had drug problems. Cream was a classic rock power trio, even though the band lasted for only 3 years. Their popular classics like White Room have ensured their popularity has endured up to date. The trio and Cream gained their popularity independently before they came together to form a band. The band consisted of Ginger Baker, Eric Clapton, and Jack Bruce. Cream's spotlight songs include I'm So Glad, Spoonful, I Feel Free, Crossroads, and Bridge. 14. Blood, Sweat, and Tears. Known for their powerful brass sound and blending rock with jazz, this band was unlike any other. But constant lineup changes would prove to be their undoing. The rock band created a massive milestone in the rock music industry with their blue jazz orientations and large horn sections. They were highly recognized by fans for combining rock band instrumentation and brass. Formed in New York in 1967, they were a formidable jazz rock band at the time. Keith Peluso, Dylan Elise, Jonathan Powell, Glenn McKelland, Julian Coriel, Brad Mason, Michael Boscorino, and Rick Firabracci make up the band. 13. Traffic. With their psychedelic roots and unique use of reed instruments, Traffic was a band that was constantly evolving. But could they keep their momentum? Traffic, an English band, was created in 1967 in Birmingham. It started as a psychedelic rock band, but later changed its sound using new instruments such as keyboards and reed instruments in their music. The band has thrived more with albums than releasing singles. The band consisted of Steve Winwood, Jim Capaldi, Dave Mason, and Chris Wood. Traffic was popularly known for songs like Medicated Goo, Paper Sun, Pearly Queen, You Can All Join In, and Freedom Rider. 12. The Grateful Dead. More than just a band, the Grateful Dead created an entire subculture. But what happens when a band becomes bigger than its music? How can you argue with the influence of this band even if you are not a fan of jam music? It is very difficult to find a subculture that fits you, and much more difficult than that to invent a new subculture. Deadhead set the highest standard for fan appreciation even today in 2024. Fans created magazines, popularized live recording techniques through making bootlegs, and found a way to provide a relatively niche, mostly instrumental rock band support so that they could tour almost constantly for 15 years. You can't argue with that. 11. Deep Purple. Often hailed as one of the pioneers of hard rock, Deep Purple set the stage for heavy metal, but fame came with a cost. They were an English band formed in 1968. The band started as a progressive and psychedelic rock band before they progressed to heavier sounds. Many critics consider Deep Purple to be part of modern hard rock and heavy metal rock pioneers. Their heavy, grinding music was very influential in the rock music industry. The band in its lifespan has sold more than 100 million records globally. All of the members of Deep Purple included John Lord, Nick Simper, Glenn Hughes, Richie Blackmore, and Rod Evans. Popular breakthrough songs of Deep Purple are Smoke on the Water, Black Knight, Child in Time, Not Fade Away, and Soldier of Fortune. 10. Black Sabbath. They didn't just play rock, they defined the sound of heavy metal, but internal turmoil would haunt them throughout their career. Black Sabbath began the movement of heavy rock in the West. Combining broken, distorted guitar amps with huge-sounding drums and incredibly political and critical lyrics, they set the rubric for all rock bands to follow after. Black Sabbath were an English rock band formed in Birmingham in 1968 by guitarist Tony Iommi, drummer Bill Ward, bassist Geezer Butler, and vocalist Ozzy Osbourne. Following Osbourne's departure in 1979, the band underwent multiple lineup changes, with Iommi being the only constant member throughout its history. 9. The Association. Known for their harmonies and catchy tunes, The Association was a vocal powerhouse, but their ever-changing lineup kept them in flux. The sunshine pop group The Association formed in Los Angeles in 1965. Its initial lineup of 6 members included Jules Alexander, Terry Kirkman, Ted Blueshell Jr., Brian Cole, Russ Jaguar, and Jim Yester. Though all the band members played instruments, they were set apart by the fact that they were all also vocalists, and frequently switched off singing the lead. Hit songs included Never My Love and Along Comes Mary. Band members came and went as the 70s wore on, with original members of the Association swapping out with new members, only to occasionally return. The band is still performing today with Jules Alexander and Jim Yester as the only remaining founding members. Terry Kirkman passed away in September 2023 at the age of 83. 8. Chicago. They blended jazz with rock in a way no other band had done before. But tragedy and change were never far from Chicago's door. This American band was formed in 1967 in, surprise, Chicago. The band uniquely blended classical music, pop, R&B, and jazz music. The Chicago band thrived as an orchestral rock group globally. They had a distinct horn-based sound which made them very popular and attracted large audiences. The members of the Chicago band included Peter Cetera, Danny Seraphine, Walter Perizader, Lee Lugain, Robert Lamb, Terry Kath, and James Pankow. The Chicago band has produced several hit albums such as Make Me Smile, Chicago Transit Authority, Chicago, and Chicago 38, Chicago Christmas. Originally called The Big Thing, the band Chicago, short for Chicago Transit Authority, formed out of its namesake city in the late 60s. The original band lineup was Peter Cetera, Lee Lugain, Terry Kath, Robert Lamb, Walter Parazader, James Pankow, and Danny Serafine. The band eventually moved out to Los Angeles, where it got its big start opening for Janis Joplin and Jimi Hendrix. Really hitting its stride in the 70s, Chicago lasted a decade with its original lineup before the tragic death of Terry Kath in 1978 forced the band to reevaluate. The band remained together and still tours today with a much changed lineup. 7. Steve Miller Band. They were the soundtrack to many a summer night, with hits that defined a decade. But time has a way of dimming even the brightest stars. The Steve Miller Band was formed in San Francisco, California in 1966. Many of the members of the band have passed away, sadly. The Steve Miller Band is composed of Steve Miller, Kenny Lee Lewis, Ron Wixow, Jacob Peterson, and Joseph Wooten. Some of their most popular songs were Abracadabra, Jet Airliner, Take the Money and Run, Rockin' Me, and The Joker. Founding member Tim Davis died from complications due to diabetes on September 20th, 1988 at the age of 44. Longtime band member Norton Buffalo died from lung cancer on October 30th, 2009. John King, drummer during the Joker era, died after a short bout with kidney cancer on October 26, 2010. James Cook died from cancer on May 16, 2011. Original bassist Lonnie Turner died from lung cancer on April 28, 2013. His time with the band led to such songs as Jet Airliner, Swingtown, Take the Money and Run, Jungle Love, and many more. Blues guitarist Jacob Peterson officially joined the band before the spring 2011 tour. Following Peterson joining the band, longtime guitarist Kenny Lee Lewis switched instruments to become the band's full-time bassist. In 2014, Steve Miller Band toured with fellow San Francisco rock band Journey. When it was announced that Steve Miller would be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as a solo artist without his band, Miller told Rolling Stone, "It wasn't my decision and I didn't have any input into any of it. If they had asked me what to do, I think I would have said, here's a list of everyone that was ever in my band. They all ought to be here." 6. Buffalo Springfield. They were a band that came together by pure chance and left an indelible mark on rock history, but their story is far more complex. This short-lived but star-studded band formed in the mid-60s when Bruce Palmer and Neil Young came to Los Angeles hoping to run into Stephen Stills. After looking for him without any luck, Young and Palmer were about to leave for San Francisco when they spotted Stills with Richie Furay while stuck in traffic. After the chance encounter, they formed Buffalo Springfield soon after, with Dewey Martin completing the lineup. The group began releasing their iconic folk rock music in 1966 and found early success with hits like For What It's Worth. Buffalo Springfield hadn't been a band very long before complications began to arise. Bruce Palmer was arrested for marijuana and deported to his home country of Canada multiple times, leaving the group scrambling to find an alternate bassist. Other band members had run-ins with the police and tensions were climbing between Stephen Stills and Neil Young, the latter who was frequently not participating in the band. Eventually, Young left to pursue his own music career and the rest of the band broke up, leading Stills to start Crosby, Stills and Nash, a group which Young would later join. Bruce Palmer and Dewey Martin died in the 2000s. 5. The Yardbirds. They were the launch pad for three of rock's greatest guitarists, but despite their talent, the Yardbirds couldn't keep it together. The Yardbirds are an English rock band formed in London in 1963. The band started the careers of three of rock's most famous guitarists, Eric Clapton, 63 to 65, Jeff Beck, 65 to 66, and Jimmy Page, 66 to 68, all of whom ranked in the top 5 of Rolling Stone magazine's list of 100 greatest guitarists. The band's other members during 63 to 68 were vocalist harmonica player Keith Relf, drummer Jim McCarty, rhythm guitarist Chris Dreja, and bassist Paul Samwell Smith, with Dreja switching to bass when Samwell Smith departed in 1966. The band had a string of hits through the mid-60s, including For Your Love, Heart Full of Soul, Shapes of Things, and Over Under Sideways Down. Originally a blues-based band noted for their signature rave-up instrumental breaks, the Yardbirds broadened their range into pop, pioneered psychedelic rock and early hard rock, and contributed to many electric guitar innovations of the mid-60s. Some rock critics and historians also cite their influence on the later punk rock, progressive rock, and heavy metal trends. Following the band's split in 1968, Relf and McCarty formed Renaissance, and Page formed Led Zeppelin. The Yardbirds reformed in the 1990s, featuring McCartney and Dreja as the only original members. Dreja left the band in 2012, leaving McCarty as the sole original member of the band. The band was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1992. They were included at number 89 in Rolling Stone's list of the 100 greatest artists of all time, and ranked number 37 on VH1's 100 greatest artists of hard rock. 4. The Zombies.
Rodney Terence Argent, Hugh Birch Grundy, Paul Ashley Warren Atkinson, Christopher Taylor White, Colin Edward Michael Blunstone.
They crafted some of the most iconic melodies of the 1960s. But just as they were finding success, the Zombies called it quits. The Zombies, originating in St. Albans, England in 1962, crafted a distinctive blend of rock, pop, and psychedelia in the 1960s music scene. Comprising Rod Argent, Colin Blunstone, Chris White, Paul Atkinson, and Hugh Grundy, the band exhibited exceptional songwriting and musicianship.
The way she lied.
Their breakthrough single, She's Not There, showcased Blunstone's soulful vocals and Argent's keyboard finesse. The timeless hit Time of the Season from their acclaimed album Odyssey and Oracle further solidified their legacy. While they disbanded in 1967, their influence lasted, with generations recognizing their contributions to the evolution of psychedelic and progressive rock.
She's not there. Well, let me tell you about the way she don't leave you now for her love.
The Zombies' impact, characterized by their distinctive sound and enduring classics, cements their status as one of the great bands of the 1960s. 3. Led Zeppelin. Before they became rock legends, they were just four guys trying to make a name for themselves. But Led Zeppelin's journey was far from easy. Formed in 1968, British rock band Led Zeppelin came to be when Jimmy Page, freshly solo from the implosion of his former band the Yardbirds, started to gather musicians to form a new group. With singer Robert Plant, John Bonham, and John Paul Jones, Page launched the new Yardbirds. But after a rebrand, the group released its first album in 1969 as Led Zeppelin while on tour. The album was an immediate success and established the band as a defining group of the following decade. Led Zeppelin, British rock band that was extremely popular in the 1970s. Although their musical style was diverse, they came to be well known for their influence on the development of heavy metal. The group was influenced by various kinds of music, including early rock and roll, psychedelic rock, blues, folk, Celtic, Indian, and Arabic music. Although acoustic and folk-based music was part of the band's repertoire from its inception, it was the bottom-heavy, loud, raw, and powerful electric style that gained them their following and notoriety early on. Their first two albums included many of the songs that prompted Led Zeppelin's categorization as a precursor of heavy metal. Led Zeppelin's best-known song is Stairway to Heaven. Its gentle acoustic beginning eventually builds to an exhilarating climax featuring a lengthy electric guitar solo. This combination of acoustic and electric sections was typical for Page, who from the band's beginning was interested in juxtaposing what he called light and shade. The song appeared on the band's fourth and most famous album, released untitled, which showed only 4 runic symbols intended to represent the band members on the cover, and had the mystical, mythological lyrics to Stairway printed on the inner sleeve. The sense of mystery and ritual that this created became an important part of the band's image. They kept their distance from the press and were uninterested in catering to the singles market. Moreover, Stairway and several other songs were of epic length by rock standards, and concert improvisation stretched some songs to triple the length of their studio versions. After a little over a decade of success and 8 studio albums, the band broke up in 1980 after drummer John Bonham died unexpectedly. The band had been about to embark on a tour, but ultimately decided the group was incomplete without its original drummer and disbanded. Robert Plant launched a successful solo career beginning in 1982, and the other band members continued their own musical projects. 2. The Moody Blues. They were pioneers of symphonic rock, blending orchestral elements with traditional rock music. But internal struggles and changing musical landscapes would prove difficult. This British rock band came together in 1964 and was composed of Mike Pinder, Ray Thomas, Clint Warwick, Graham Edge, and Denny Lane under the name M&B 5, which would eventually become the Moody Blues. Lane and Warwick left in '66 and were replaced by John Lodge and Justin Hayward. Over the decade the group was together, it produced several highly successful psychedelic rock albums, including In Search of the Lost Chord, On the Threshold of a Dream, and A Question of Balance. The band parted ways in 1974, but reunited a number of times over roughly 50 years, most recently in 2018. Edge and Thomas died within a few years of each other, and Pinder passed away in April 2024. John Lodge and Justin Hayward have continued performing as solo artists, though as of June 2024, Hayward says that the two have no plans to reunite and perform as the Moody Blues. The Moody Blues sold 70 million albums worldwide, including 18 platinum and gold LPs. They produced 16 studio albums, 6 of which made the US Top 20, with 2 reaching number 1, and 8 of which made the UK Top 20, with 3 reaching number 1. They were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2018 for over 50 years of exhilarating and significant music that has influenced countless musicians and rock fans around the world. 1. The Beatles. No list of gone bands would be complete without the Beatles, the band that defined a generation and then fell apart in front of the whole world. The Beatles essentially invented the concept of a band breaking up, and the ugliness surrounding it set the tone for every breakup that followed.
She's got a ticket to ride. She's got a ticket to ride.
Rock historians have been arguing about the exact cause of their split for over 50 years, and even the members of the band can't agree on what did it. After Brian died, we collapsed, John Lennon told Rolling Stone in December 1970, in reference to manager Brian Epstein, who had guided the band through most of the 60s until his death in 1967. Paul took over and supposedly led us. But what is leading us when we go round in circles? We broke up then. That was the disintegration. In a 2018 interview with Howard Stern, Paul McCartney said that Lennon was the actual cause of the breakup. There was a meeting where John came in and said, "Hey guys, I'm leaving the group," Paul said. All that money we'd earned and all the fame we earned was going down the pan. There was this guy that was going to take it all. It was that close. I was going, "No guys, we can keep it. We don't have to give it to this guy." He was talking about Epstein's eventual replacement, Alan Klein, an incredibly divisive figure in rock history who briefly managed both the Beatles and the Rolling Stones.
You know you should be glad with a love like that. She's got a ticket to ride, but she don't care.
McCartney was the one member of the group opposed to bringing him on board. The others would eventually realize that McCartney was right to have had doubts, but not before Klein's negative influence drove a major wedge between McCartney and the other Beatles. McCartney was especially upset at Klein's decision to let Phil Spector come in and complete what would become Let It Be, adding strings to the long and winding road without his permission.
Working for the Daily Man, it's a steady job, but he wants to be a paperback writer. And you know you should be glad. She said you
Yoko Ono has been wrongly accused of breaking the group up at several points in the past. And while there's no doubt that her presence alongside Lennon at recording sessions late in the band's career rankled the other members, pinning the entire dissolution on Ono is grossly unfair and simply ahistorical. She certainly didn't break the group up, McCartney said in 2013. I don't think you can blame her for anything. I don't think you could have broken up four very strong people like them, Ono said, even if you tried. So there must have been something that happened within them, not an outside force at all. In the end, what broke up the Beatles was being the Beatles. They were four men who were simply exhausted by fame, fights over money and control, and sadly, each other.
ride. She's got a ticket to ride, but she don't care.
Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure to check out our other videos where we uncover more hidden gems from music history. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss out on our latest content. Keep exploring, and we'll see you in the next one.